it's just a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm so excited to be with like-minded people. So often when we are doing what we do, we run into a lot of opposition, as I'm sure many of you do also. And our main focus in Nevada is to empower parents to be involved in their children's lives at home and at school. And we've been working a lot with our school districts, mostly Washoe County and Clark County. We're working on outreach in our more rural areas. Our organization is about 6 years old. We started just as a group of about 6 parents. We had one of our trustees who was a little bit of an, well, not really little, she was an activist trustee who was trying to take away the rights of parents to know what their children were being taught at school as it relates to sexuality, sex education, and relationships. She was pushing hard to have Planned Parenthood be the purveyor of sex education. And I'll tell you that there are organizations who, their survival financially relies on parents not being awake. They want to have relationships with your children so that they can have influence and guidance and direct them to them and their services. And this is a real issue, not just in Nevada, but we see it happening all over, and you don't have to go very far. In California, comprehensive sexuality education is alive and well. And I have some examples here, and I'm going to apologize to you in advance because some of these are a little bit explicit, but we need to talk about it because if our kids are seeing it, we should know.
Yeah.
And anyway, I want to talk to you about an issue that we've been fighting in the legislature. It's a very current issue. This was a bill. We go from the legislature to the local issues, legislature, local, because when these groups that are well-funded and well-organized when they don't succeed on the local level, then they go to the legislature and try to make it law for everybody. This AB295 was a sexuality expansion bill that happily was defeated yesterday. It ran into but it was sexualized young children and weakened parental influence in education. I'm just going to go through and talk to you about what this bill did because it's still relevant. Even though this bill ran into a deadline, it was a hard deadline yesterday to receive a hearing in the Legislative Education Committee. It is coming to us local, and it's already, some of these things are being already implemented in Washoe County. And a lot of it is because school board elections matter. And a lot of parents don't understand that if we get a really liberal school board member, they decide, the school boards decide a lot of what happens in policy at school and how we handle things. A quick example would be, I was on a gender diverse policy working board for an entire year and watched as they crafted a gender diverse policy that would make bathrooms co-ed. Basically, we worked really hard to have it be fair, where the children, at least the people who were working, I was working with these people trying to get it so that every kid could have 2 choices. You could go to a gender neutral restroom and locker room, or you could go to one that matched your biology, and unhappily, we lost. And we begin to see that there really is, it isn't about the kids, it's about an ideology. And so we're trying to wake parents up to the dangers that are happening in our schools, and I'm sorry to say the Supreme Court's probably going to have to rule on this issue. It's alive and well in every state in this nation. So I'm just going to go through really fast. I don't have, what am I not doing? Oh, my upside down.
Might have to turn it on.
I'll do it. Okay. Sure. I can do it manually. Let me just scroll. Oh, I'll just scroll. It's okay, no problem. All right, we're gonna just scroll. Okay, so this is AB295 and what it did. But since this bill is dead, we're just going to talk about what's coming in the fall. What it does is it establishes a unit or course in education. And what they do is they decide what is age appropriate and what is medically accurate. Well, we can agree on what's medically accurate, kind of, except when it comes to some issues. Local sex education advisory committees are made up of local parents, community members, And they are the ones who will dictate what is age appropriate. We feel that this is best left to families. So it's really critical for mothers and fathers to know what is being taught so they can make the decision about whether or not it's okay for their children if they're at that point in their development where they can hear those things. Here's a big one. This is the hill I will die on. Opt-in versus opt-out. Our state is currently an opt-in state, which means the schools have to have a signed written permission slip that says we are going to be teaching this material to your children on this day. We have to have a signed permission slip to do this. Opt-out keeps parents out of that. It becomes up to the parents to find out when it's going to be taught, and it also means that they don't have to notify you if it's going to be taught on this day or that day. They'll just say at some point during the year, we're going to be teaching these things. So this is actually the first step to getting parents to go to sleep. We've got this. We're the experts on your children, and we are going to decide. And this is where the mama bears all woke up. This is why Power2Parent has been so successful in Nevada, and we're opening up chapters in Reno soon. It's really catching on because parents are waking up.
Good.
Thank you, parents. Thank you, parents. So current Nevada statute does not allow outside entities to teach students. So school districts are currently accountable to parents because everybody that's in that has access to your children needs to go through a process. This particular bill and other bills like it, we defeated one in 2015. The governor, it actually passed both houses, but the governor ended up vetoing it gratefully on the basis of opt-in, opt-out. That outside entities like Planned Parenthood are not accountable to parents and should not be allowed to teach sex education in schools.
Agreed.
So the other thing that this bill did was it moved sex education out from underneath the umbrella of health education. So sex education could be taught in English. They could be giving your child essays to write that had to do with these things. And they would move it into, say, social sciences. It wouldn't just stay within the purview of health education. So this is the bottom line. These are the things that I talked to you about. I want to now move away from AB295. We're grateful it's defeated. We're gearing up for another fight because it's never going to be over, but we just want to make as many parents aware as we can. But there is a handbook for getting the comprehensive sexuality education implemented in school. And the first one is to legally diminish parental notification rights by changing opt-in to opt-out. I've explained what that is. The argument for this change is that at-risk students without involved parents might fall through the cracks. So it's really a fallacious argument to say that we have good parents, but because we have bad parents, we're going to take away parental rights from good parents to make up for the bad ones. And this is, of course, isn't the answer. There are a lot of ways to go through it. And in Southern Nevada, 95% of permission slips are returned. Most children go through our current sexual risk avoidance curriculum. It is a great curriculum. We don't need comprehensive sex education, and our pregnancy rates are going down.
Amen.
The second thing is to change state laws to mandate sex ed in every school district. It's not a graduation requirement to have it, but in many states it is. Use legal threats to force districts to implement change. The ACLU threatens the districts with lawsuits unless ACLU employees are allowed to oversee sex ed curriculum changes. We've been pretty successful in mitigating those demands through laws that already exist that are for parental rights. But they are working hard to change those too, so we have to be ever vigilant about what's happening on the legislative level. Step 4, this is a really interesting trick. They use surveys to shape public opinion, and it's an implied support. So 3 years ago, they put out a big district-wide survey with very leading questions that bring you to a preconceived answer. You already know the answers that you're going to get, and then they use that as empirical evidence that parents actually want this. And we discovered that they had put the survey online. There was no controls. We didn't even know if the people taking the survey were members of Clark County School District. We had proof that some had even come in from out of state. So that was, that's just one of the ways that they try and reflect that there's public support for comprehensive sex education. Step 5, this is really, really important to understand because a lot of what they say is couched in innocuous language. Thank you. They use misleading buzzwords, age appropriate, children are sexual from birth, they're sexual beings. Hate, if you don't accept, endorse other sexual beliefs, you hate them. Inclusive means all forms of sexual exploration, lifestyles, redefined family structures are equal and good. Medically accurate will give detailed instructions on on sexual acts, use contraceptives, negotiation. Planned Parenthood has all kinds of videos on this, on sexual consent. They are awful. They're not appropriate for anybody. Shame-based, promoting that there is no shame or guilt in any form of sexual activity or deviation, regardless of age. And then what's called safer sex, and I'm not even going to read that. So, but it does get a lot into anal sex, things like that, and saying that condoms will prevent disease, but actually condoms are not FDA approved for anal sex. But they do tell the kids that they can be safe if they do it that way. I wanted to show you quickly some worksheets that are being shown in high schools and middle schools, high school and middle schools in California. The ones that I'm going to show you here are from the Aquilenas School District in California. So this is how they talk about what sexual contact is. These worksheets are for 8th graders. Here is another one. This is given to 13-year-old students. It's small, so I'm just going to read you the highlights. I have safer sex materials. They're told how they can get ready for sex, if they can check off some of these statements. I have safer sex materials. I know why I want to have sex. I can tell my partner what feels good. At the bottom of the list it says, if you haven't checked almost all of the things, if you haven't checked almost all of the things on this list, take a look at the ones you didn't check and try to figure out what you need to do for yourself.
Wow.
And so they really want these kids to become sexually active early. Negotiating's big. They're talking a lot about this on college campuses, but they want to bring it into some of our youngest ages. This is making consent clear. This is also for middle school curriculum. So they'll talk about, you have to have a yes statement for all of these things to continue to go further. But the problem isn't even this. The problem is that they're saying to the kids that this is okay. Really what we need to be focusing on with these kids is how to be kind, how to have great relationships. This is going down completely the wrong road. They have sex ed exam questions. And you can see here that Planned Parenthood is really promoted here. Their websites are promoted. And, where can you go to get confidential free services in reproductive health? This is also code for we will not tell your mom and dad. So this is also really interesting. They talk about gender a lot and wanting to introduce that almost as a right for kids who are already part of the LGBT community. We have a lot of love and respect for this community. We want them to feel loved and safe in our schools. We just object to the normalization of this. We want, instead of talking about the mechanics of these issues, we want to talk about just having healthy relationships and not go too far into this in classrooms. But this does teach that there are many, many genders. This is one of the things that they'll talk about too. They would present this to a kindergarten and first grade class. This is just gross. So this is one of the, I'll just let you read that. So this is another way that they teach you how to be really, what's the word, creative with vegetables and fruits. So, and they also will really talk a lot about the condoms, the dental dams, teaching teachers how to go over it, and they give kids reading material. If they're too embarrassed to read it to the class, they'll give it to them in printed material. So I just want to talk to you quickly about some studies of interest. A Yale study found that improving access to information led to increase in promiscuity and no shift in perception of norms. The trouble is that the kids are being introduced to concepts that they just do not have the mental capacity to deal with. They don't have the experience, and they don't have a way to think about complex issues such as sexual interaction yet, and it's being introduced too early. There are a lot of foundations. One is the SICAS Foundation. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but there is not a national standard for this kind of teaching. It really should be left up to the local communities. But they would they say, you know, there's not ever too much information for young children. Another study of the Journal of Adolescent Health reported that adolescents who received information on condoms were twice as likely to have participated in genital play, oral sex, and vaginal intercourse as those who had not received formal contraceptive education. So, and we just advocate for waiting just a little longer. We don't want to advocate for elementary school students to be introduced to this kind of thing, but this is exactly what we've been fighting as parents. So, in closing, we support the American College of Pediatrics. They've really come out with some great stuff. Comprehensive sexuality education goes far beyond sex ed and is a dangerous assault on the health and innocence of children. And I would also say that it's an assault on families because it seeks to take away the parental rights. We want moms and dads, especially our millennial moms and dads, to know that they are the experts on their children. The schools are not. And even if they feel like they don't know anything, they are still the experts on their own children because they love them and they want what's best for them. And that they need to be the first teachers and the front line for their children. This is our mission. We exist to inform, organize, and mobilize community members for the protection of fundamental parental rights. This one has been primarily with sex education and what we've been dealing with on a legislative level and a local level. We plan this is going to come up again in the fall locally. But we want parents to know that it is their choice. If they want to, have these conversations, that's where it should happen, is at home and not at school. They are the experts. We want to empower parents. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.